For 37 years, Trees for Houston's mission has been to plant, protect, and promote trees throughout the Houston area. Trees for Houston has grown from a small grassroots organization into an entity that plants tens of thousands of trees throughout the Houston area every year. Not only would one be very hard-pressed to drive even 10 minutes across anywhere in the Houston area without running across one of our projects, you would also be very hard-pressed to do it in a more efficient and cost-effective way than Trees for Houston can do it. This value is something that is going to be essential if we're going to create the kind of green place and we're going to input the kinds of numbers of trees that we want to do over the next 10 years. We're talking about savings of tens of millions of dollars by expanding our fiscal model, and Trees for Houston is ready to make that leap. Tonight we're honoring Ed Wulfe. Ed was a board member at Trees for Houston for over 2 decades. During that time, not only have our numbers evolved, but our methodology has evolved. The impact, all of it has grown to such a great degree, and it puts us on the edge of something much, much bigger. Ed's impacted so many organizations, not only Trees for Houston, but quite literally the lives of hundreds of thousands of Houstonians, and we're here to honor him.
In 1994, I was a senior in college. I had decided that I really wanted to get into the real estate business in Houston. I reached out to Ed, and after a series of conversations and interviews, he hired me, and I went to work for him in the summer of 1995. Ed always really encouraged people around him to have what he called dual careers. One was a professional career, and the other was a philanthropic career. And looking back at Ed's life, he was extraordinarily successful at both.
Right out of school, he hired me, and I worked with him for 39 years. Over the years, we had thousands and thousands of lunches, and they were often at Cafe Annie downstairs in this building. And during these lunches, he would often talk about the projects that he was involved in. He would talk about Memorial Park. He would talk about the trees being planted along Post Oak Boulevard. Talked about the transplanting of trees at Boulevard Place. He would talk about the linear parks along the bayou. And so one of the things he was really, really passionate about was trees and green space.
I had an opportunity to meet Ed Wulfe in the year 2000 when I started working with the Greater Houston Partnership in its creation of the Quality of Life Committee. Ed played an extremely important leadership role in directing many of the programs we ended up adopting in the Quality of Life agenda, but also a role in being the cheerleader. And he was the one who said, we can do this. There's not a no out there, there's a let's come up with how we can make it happen.
It's really been wonderful as my work with Ed in the Quality of Life Coalition. And Ed was one of the first guys we recruited to help us. And 2 of the 5 objectives that we set out were to, 1, reforest our freeways, and also to complete all the hike and bike trails, which had been planned 100 years ago. And of course, Ed was right in the middle of all that. And Ed's efforts in this and many other projects is leaving a heck of a legacy for his family and the citizens of Houston.
He, as a person, embodies, I think, the greatest aspects of this city. Very hard worker, very optimistic, very interested in the quality of life in the city.
I joined roughly 21 years ago, shortly after Ed joined the board. He was able to put us in contact with the right people. That was his greatest strength in everything he did in Houston. He had the contacts, he had the determination, and that's what we tapped. That was his strength, is he just knew how to get things done. And it made our lives a lot easier.
Ed was a partner with us on the Main Street Coalition from its founding. He served as chair for the entire time, almost 20 years. In that, the thing that I appreciated the most was his vision for this city and his passionate desire to make the city a more beautiful and better place.
Ed got involved with Trees for Houston because he believed in the purpose and the mission of Trees for Houston. Also, as a civic leader and a very successful developer, he understood the value added that trees in the public realm added to the civic community and also to property values.
Thinking about those days in the 90s and the early zeros, Ed was a critical champion of our cause. If we had an issue, all we had to do was call Ed. He was always willing to put his credibility and his political throw weight behind whatever Trees for Houston decided that we ought to do, which was to plant, to protect, and to preserve trees in the city of Houston.
I had the great honor of knowing Ed through the Trees for Houston involvement and being on the board. Ed always told us, you have to give it 110%. You have to be all in, and anything is possible. And especially the future for Trees for Houston. We can give 110% and grow Trees for Houston even more. It's not just 20,000 trees. What is the future? What is the lasting impact we are all going to make on this great city?
With the advent of projects like Bayou Greenways, the Mayor's 2020 initiative, and the City Resiliency Plan, which is asking for 500,000 trees a year, we simply can't accommodate this kind of green space growth by remaining in the status quo. We have to expand, and that time is now.
At Phillips 66, we want to improve our communities both today and for generations to come. And we believe that investing our time and resources with Trees for Houston is one way of doing that. We're excited to be part of Trees for Houston's future as they plant their next 500,000 trees.
For me personally, Ed had this unique ability to put me in contact with the right people and the right projects at the right time. And he really enhanced our ability to become bigger. So on behalf of Trees for Houston and in memory of Ed, thank you so much for coming tonight, and thank you so much for your support.